Hey, it's me, Big P, and I'm here to give you guys a more definitive and more streamlined version of the build guide. I spent the weekend league starting with Crackling Lance on Inquisitor and had a great time. It's really disappointing to see so many people just giving up on the Lance and just going for Arc instead. I think that's real lazy. I think that it is a very different skill that kind of needs its own sort of play style, and people are just lazy and don't like targeting the lance, whereas Arc has like chain and auto target. Crackling Lance definitely is a more active play style and kind of requires a couple buddy skills to really get good coverage and function. And I think another thing that people are overlooking is cold conversion. My version of the build is using one call of the Brotherhood, and it's really ridiculous how much this one ring, which isn't even that expensive in Trade League, 15-20 chaos, tops, maybe 25 by now. Yeah, it's like around 20 chaos right now. It's just crucial. So this build guide is going to be a little different than my normal build guides because I am actually going to do the map at the end of the video. So I'm going to give you all the information on what you need to get started and what are some choices you can make, because it is league start friendly. I was able to level all the way with Crackling Lance and Orb of Storms. Did Act 10 Kataba Deathless and am perma-freezing like yellow map bosses and stuff like that. But let's just get right into it. So the generic theory of the build guide was to make a kind of standard spell crit caster that would scale well with investments on basically zero budget. We went from 0 to hero with this build. And the cold conversion, I think Inquisitor, specifically the Ascendancy, takes a lot of advantage of the different things that just a little bit of cold conversion can do for the build. It's actually kind of insane. It's like night and day, the difference between splitting your damage up between cold, and we have a bit of chaos damage as well between the Atziri's Promise and the DUSKDAWN, but we'll get into that. So right now I just actually kind of want to talk about the Crackling Lance and how it works and what you should do with the Orb of Storms as well, because I'll get into why I think Orb of Storms is absolutely necessary for a Crackling Lance build. It's kind of got an unprecedented sort of interaction with the Lance. So obviously you got a Crackling Lance here and Intensify. Intensify is absolutely mandatory for the build. This would be your 2-link if you had only 2 links, because intensity is built into the skill gem and it just works properly with it. Then we have Hypothermia, because just chill ailment, the freeze ailment, and the more damage with hits against chilled enemies is just, it's a brutal gem. It is absolutely build defining, so much so that you pretty much go into decks. All the decks on my gear is so that I can level up this Hypothermia. I'm actually at 108 decks right now, and to level this to 20, I'm going to need to find some more decks. We're getting there real soon, so we'll have to get there. Faster casting. I don't know if I've ever used this in a main skill link ever. You know, I pretty much have only ever used it with Flame Dash and maybe some other utility skills on some other setups, but on Crackling Lance, I genuinely think, for a number of reasons, it is absolutely necessary to have faster casting. Not Spell Echo. Spell Echo will get you killed even with a bunch of cast speed, I think, and it doesn't bring up your intensity stacks as much as you'd like. You can use it, you know, there's a lot of choices you can make and exactly what you want to use, but in my experience, bringing that cast time down as much as you can is the difference between you stunning the rare mob, killing the rare mob, freezing the rare mob, doing whatever you can to stay alive. The build is very active because I think people's comparisons to Arc are kind of unfair, because Arc, you know, like you can play Arc with like basically zero aiming at all because of the smart aiming and chaining, whereas Crackling Lance, as you cast it, pretty much becomes a line of damage. You know, it's like lightning scorching ray. It's like a fucking Kamehameha, okay? And it doesn't chain. It's not a projectile. It doesn't, you know, pierce anything. I mean, it pierces everything in the line, but they need to be within the line of damage. It's super satisfying when you actually learn how to play it and move around it. Positioning is really important for the skill, but faster casting is going to help make that, you know, the aiming and the shooting of the skill that much more approachable. And inspiration just helps with the spamminess, because we're reserving a lot of mana. I actually only have 78, but we have a lot of mana regen, and the mana cost at 34 here. Can we get the mana on the screen there? So, yeah, I don't think I'll run out. I think I even mixing in the other stuff, and this is without my Arcane Surge up. Wow, what happened to the Arcane Surge? Okay, anyway, but yeah, inspiration. And then the sixth link would probably be something like either conk effects for more damage, probably control destruction actually when you get enough crit and you're safe with that. Or added lightning if you're kind of lacking damage in other places. This might be best for leveling. You can also use added cold if you really don't have the Call of the Brotherhood and want to take advantage of some cold damage in your build. You can also use that. You're going to be using Herald of Ice as well. I mean, at least I am in my setup. I think that's really helpful. So now, that's the first skill. This is really kind of a 2-skill build. And the second skill is Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms, you might have used in other builds before. Maybe a Stormbrand build. I leveled with this and Storm Blast Mine. It's pretty good. The way, I really wish you had like a hideout dummy so you could see. With all our buffs up and everything, Orb of Storms is doing almost as much damage. Well, not really, because like a level 4 intensity Crackling Lance is a bunch of damage. But we are scaling so much area in the build. Actually, the next couple points are going to be going back into Amplify and getting a little bit more area just because I want my Orb of Storms to be that much more effective. I'm going to be using a staff in my final setup, so I'm actually going to have a 6th-link Crackling Lance and a 6th-link Orb of Storms because I like it so much. I think it's really just super clutch. You can put a lot of utility on the Orb of Storms, and especially now, as of the new patch, there's not that many ways to generate like charges for free. And so what I've done here is Orb of Storms with Power Charge on Critical, which is pretty much immediately up. Innervate, which is just a nice buff that gives us some added lightning damage. And then Ice Bite, which gives us Frenzies, which is really nice. You kind of get a little mini Trickster Ascendancy on a button. And so Orb of Storms with enough, you'll have enough cast speed that you can throw it down and start throwing down lances before most builds even cast one skill or do one attack. I mean, it's a little bit wonky and clunky, and it's definitely a more active playstyle than you might have bargained for if you're used to playing some like auto-target builds, one-button builds, or whatever. But overall, the power of it is going to be worth it, and I highly, highly recommend getting yourself an Orb of Storm setup. Let's go into everything else. So Flame Dash and Arcane Surge. I guess I can go into here. I'm using a staff here, but the build is very flexible. If you prefer to use Shield Charge, if you prefer to use Dual Wands, if you prefer to use whatever else, you know, a 3-link setup for this would be Flame Dash, Arcane Surge, and Second Wind. I just have Righteous Fire here for, you know, I just use the Vol Righteous Fire for the like the extra damage button. There's nothing too fancy going on there. And Herald of Ice, I have the Onslaught on my Herald of Ice, as well as Hex Touch with Temp Change. This is kind of just like a little bit of an offensive-defensive sort of aura. It doesn't actually bring up the mana reservation that much, because Onslaught is 110%, and I didn't realize that Hex Touch doesn't even have a mana multiplier. So putting Temp Chains on your Herald of Ice, rather than I've seen some people put in the Orb of Storms, that's fine, but you don't really get, like this area here, things are going to be dying in this area anyway, because every Crackling Lance you cast will proc the Orb of Storms to shock again. You'll be doing a lot of damage, and if you're turning around and aiming properly, anything in there is going to be killing you and dead anyway. Whereas if you have it in your Herald of Ice, the Hex Touch and the Temp Chains will be proccing on stuff. Anything that the Herald of Ice touches off screen or at the edge of your screen that you're aiming with your Crackling Lance, it's just a nice defensive layer, and that's really kind of the second stage of the build. The first stage was building up the damage and figuring out exactly how to scale that, and now once I have enough damage, we got to stay alive, especially in the heists. We'll get into that because that's a bit of a mix-up too. Yeah, so that's the Herald of Ice setup. My cast when damage taken setup is a Steel Skin, Is that working? Yeah. With a Frost Shield, I was using Sigil of Power before. I'm honestly not super sold on Frost Shield or Sigil of Power either way. We have enough circles to worry about standing in with the Orb of Storms, so I don't know. Your results may vary with that, but we are using a very high level Vitality. Vitality has been buffed, and with the Inquisitor having Consecrated Ground, I'm regenning almost 600 life per second, which is pretty nice. That on top of the ES regen per second, which is 200 from the Inquisitor. That's all pretty great. There's a little bit of flexibility in, exactly what you want to do in terms of, skills. It is a generic leveling, like spell crit type of build. I went from nothing to this, and, you might have to tweak and adjust whatever you're using for that. But anyway, let's get into the gear, which is also very flexible. However, if you're going to go for my cold conversion style version, Call of the Brotherhood is going to be required. It's insane how much this does for us. Just throwing this on kind of changes the whole function of the build, at least in terms of clear and coverage. It just makes the Crackling Lance like actually crackle when you hit it back with a big cold damage crit. It's fantastic. I don't need to tell you how satisfying it is to hit stuff with cold damage. Everything else is kind of, generic stuff. I will say that DUSKDAWN, the staff's so nice, I bought it twice. So I'll give you a little quick lesson here. DUSKDAWN itself is built with the vendor recipe from the, Shade of Solaris and the Light of Lunaris, which drop from, they can drop from a number of places because I bought some of them and did the, you vendor them with an Orb of Fusing, and then it will take the item level of the lower one and apply that to your DUSKDAWN. And so if you don't know about item levels and sockets, you need to have an item level of 50 to have 6 sockets. So this is doing a ton of damage for my build, and it's fantastic, but I kind of wanted to 6-link it. Luckily, I didn't over quality it and throw a bunch of fusings at it, after the fact. I mean, I couldn't 6-socket it. I got to the max sockets here. So yeah, if you're gonna do the DUSKDAWN thing, make your own, but look at the item level. Please don't make the mistake that I made. DUSKDAWN is basically one of those classic situations where you, in some universe, maybe potentially could craft a staff that's better than this DUSKDAWN. I don't know what universe that is. I don't think we're living in that universe. Certainly not within the first week or so of the league. Every single line of this item is just banger after banger. It's everything we want. Block is good. Actually, we're overcapped for block. So it's almost overkill. It's really the spell block that we get into trouble in, but we'll get into that when we get into the tree. But yeah, DUSKDAWN is fantastic. So that's my big recommendation if you want to do the staff version, which you don't have to, of course. You can have like 3-link setups for like shield charge and or flame dash and other stuff. I mean, even Orb of Storms you can put into 3-link if you're really not that sold on it, but I don't know, I think after you see some of the mapping gameplay, you'll see why it's so good. Everything else is really not necessary. My boots are actually pretty crappy, but it has chance to dodge spell hits, and spells are kind of what I'm scared of a bit right now. Whatever gloves, crappy belt, okay, like jewels. I think jewels is what we're going for. We're level 89 now, so realistically we'll probably get this one, and this one, and that's pretty much it. After we get the extra area here. I don't want to go into the tree right now, though. I do want to finish up on the gear. So this, I don't know if you can really see, is a hunter helmet that actually dropped like this, and is pretty decent. It doesn't have any max life, but I like the lightning damage spells. There's a lot of things you can do in the helmet slot. You can go for a Crown of the Inward Eye. A lot of them, later on in the league will have cool corruptions, like lightning damage leached as life, which might be helpful. Not really necessary, not important. Just get resistances and life on your gear, because you want to stay alive, like here. Not that good, but it is giving me a decent bit of dex. Like I mentioned before, we're even indexed on the tree here, and we're still struggling. I can't even take this off right now. We're perfectly. Oh yeah, see, like I'll need to level this up. That's the thing about the cold conversion version. If you're using the green skill gems, not this one so much, maybe Ice Bite. Yeah, see, I need to get a little bit more dex somewhere on my build, so that's a little bit tricky with the gearing. I guess I might as well mention, normally I would be using a Zealotry instead of the Herald of Thunder, but an aspect of the Spider ring that is very usable dropped for me. It had no suffix, so I crafted some resistances on it, and it had some life, and I'm not entirely sure how aspect of the Spider works, but it's both an offensive and defensive layer that I think might make the difference here or there. Obviously this isn't necessary. If you don't have this, I would just use Zealotry instead, because without the Herald of Thunder and the aspect of the Spider, you have more than enough mana to do that. And I guess you should keep in mind that you might want to balance the level of your Vitality, which now reserves a flat amount of mana with however much mana you have. So that's about it for the gear, I think. We can go into the Flasks here real quick and then go into the Ascendancy, because showing you my flask setup will lead into why I think the Inquisitor is so strong. Seething Divine Life, Flash of Staunching, nothing really that interesting there. This is actually giving us the chaos damage leached as life, which is pretty nice. Between the regen and the leech, your life will shoot back up, as well as your energy shield most of the time, ideally. If you are getting some chaos damage done to you and it's bypassing your energy shield, then yeah, it'll bring it back up. Diamond Flask of Warding, where a crit build, you want to be critting. This makes it lucky. And this is Alchemist Court Flask of Adrenaline. This is my heist flask. This is going to be a phasing flask league. You're going to want a quartz flask in some, respect. Like, you're just going to need it. I'm actually getting away with pretty speedy flasks here. You might notice that I don't have any elemental, like I don't have a heat flask or a dousing flask or a grounding flask, anything like that, because you don't need it. You're an Inquisitor. So if you level as Inquisitor, your first two will be Sanctuary into Pious Path. If you don't know how this works, you make Consecrated Ground, which lets you regen, and then you have increased critical strike chance against stuff on Consecrated Ground. And then Pious Path will make the Consecrated Ground effects linger on you pretty much indefinitely. And then you have immunity to elemental ailments. Not bad. That means you can kind of save yourself the alts when you get into maps. You don't really have to worry about the rolling your flask and stuff like that. And then the next two are once you start gearing up for crit. It is worth noting that you level as Elemental Overload, and then once you have your tree and your gear set up, then the damage comes. And I guess something else worth noting, Righteous Providence here, and I guess to a certain extent Inevitable Judgment. A lot of this is generic elemental damage. So normally your lightning skill tree wouldn't really work for a cold conversion build, but Inquisitor is pretty nice. Critical strikes ignore enemy monster elemental resistances. And so a lot of people, when they see this node, they say, oh, but you can get negative resistances for your lightning damage with conductivity, and then lightning pen in your links, and then other stuff, and it ends up being better damage overall. And I say, yeah, that's fine. But Inquisitor is really interesting in that it can do this. You can pop this on, and this will work exactly the same as it's been. It'll be penetrating, or rather ignoring the lightning and cold resistance. So I think that's overall why I like Inquisitor so much as a starter. You really get just like sort of a well-rounded tree, not to mention that effective non-damaging ailments that is, as you can see at the bottom there, chilled, frozen, and shocked. We love all three of those. All three of those are flying all over this build. I'm not going to get into the breakdown of when or how it happens, how it works with crits. Just know that you'll be freezing and chilling and shattering. And yeah, it really just works. So I guess I'll go into the tree right now to show you a bit more of what I'm really doing here. I guess the only things really worth mentioning, because this is a pretty standard tree, and I'm going to have the POB in the description here if you want to go over it. You go over to Doomcast, you go all the way down into Coordination. Intensity is absolutely necessary on the build because it will bring up your max stacks on your Crackling Lance, which will just be an absurd amount of more damage. Now, I am a staff build with Glancing Blows. If you see my defense down here, we have 75% chance to block attack and an innate 50% chance to block spell damage. If I could fit a Cluster Jewel into this build, maybe I would go for a block spell damage build there. I don't know. The tree's already pretty stretched as it is, and probably isn't worth it to go into that just for a little bit more spell block, especially because Glancing Blows has been nerfed a bit, and now you take 65% of the damage from the blocked hits. So it's a little bit rough, and I have been ripping in some of my scarier heists and maps here and there. But yeah, block, you get to go for Counterweight and Whirling Barrier, just really nice stuff here. And then as well as Enigmatic Defense. This will bring up your spell block, which is really hard to get. I mean, that's really all that there is on the tree. For bandits, I helped Illyria because we're a crit build and we're a starter. It helps you with your resistances, a little bit of mana regen. And yeah, this Pantheon is whatever. I mean, I kind of swap it. Did they fix the bug? Yeah, you can actually swap your Pantheon now, which was the thing. So I guess this video is already like over 20 minutes. I was hoping it would kind of be a bit more quick, but I guess we'll have, fuck it, let's do the map quick. Because everything, when it all comes together, it's kind of pretty straightforward. You don't really have to worry about it. This is kind of a scary map, actually, now I'm looking at it. Oh, and there's a Delirium. So, let's see. Try and just get through real quick. So Orb of Storms for something like Delirium is nice to just throw down very quickly and then kind of cover your ass. Here you see the Frost Shield as well. We were talking about the two balls showing up and staying within the balls. You can go zoom through the map, but you really do get more mileage out of the build by taking it a little bit slower. Obviously no one wants to hear that, but it's a more methodical and thoughtful playstyle than a lot of builds are. And the damage is definitely there. Once we get to the map boss, you'll see. Yeah, luckily, I'm not doing the Abyss. Abyss is still bugged. I don't know if you guys are aware. Oh boy, Perandus coins. There's a 5 link, sure. Can you imagine if I did a 20-minute video and then die? How fucking cringe that would be. I mean, they have like chain and like crit multi and all that. Yeah, fuck the Abyss. I guess this is a good showcase of the coverage that Orb of Storms gives you, because that's saving my ass there, you see. Just having a little bit of cold damage slows them down, and then if the Herald goes off, they are, if not frozen, they're chilled, which is nice as well. Okay, thank God the Delirium's over. Ooh, another quest. So there's Frost Shield. I honestly don't know how much Frost Shield is doing. I guess if you walk into it, it'll be kind of... I kind of just threw it in there because I think Sigil of Power was getting me killed more often than not. The way Sigil works is that if it's at max stages, then enemies inside of the circle do less damage to you, or deal less damage, rather. Which is nice, but our mana cost, I don't know how consistently, it's not like very obvious when it's at max stages, and the damage it provides is not really necessary, as you can see here. That's your map boss, that's your tier 8 map boss. And I didn't really show it, but because, it is a little scary to kind of have to tank the map boss, but you kind of can with the glancing blows and everything like that. So, okay, that wasn't that bad, and I didn't die in the delirium, so we're going to cut the video there. Thanks for watching. If you've watched so far, I'm going to put, like, timestamps in the description. I mean, I guess if you're fucking 25 minutes in this video, you don't really need the timestamps at this point. I think we're going to stream a bit today, this week. This league performance issues have been kind of makes me weary of like doing heist and stuff while streaming because I really don't want to lose that juicy loot. But yeah, this is my favorite league so far. It's been fantastic, and I kind of love that I kind of did it with like a pet skill that people are kind of down on right now. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments here, or come visit Twitch stream. It's not going to be as consistent as I'd hoped because I have been getting weird crashes in Path. I'm sure, you know, I'm not alone in that, but we're going to try really pushing this build. You know, I'm going to maybe even do like this will be 1.0 version of the build guide, because I am confident enough that almost anybody can start with this. You just kind of need to know how to get it going and what the playstyle is. It's way better than Arc. Fuck Arc. I love Crackling Lance. Arc is for babies. Let me know what other build guides you want to see this league, because I'm probably going to make a lot of other ones. And, you know, like the vid, subscribe, all that stuff, because this is going to be a big league for me. I think I'm going to do a lot of content, and I'm just hyped for it. We're just going to do it. We're just going to kill it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.